will you pray with me, please? Gracious and loving God, be with us in this time. Make your presence known to us. May all that we hear and speak be a true reflection of your grace and love. In all your names, amen.
Amen.
So as Kathy said, today is Palm Sunday, and we begin what's called Holy Week. It's called that because it contains two of the most important days in the Christian calendar. But it starts with Palm Sunday, which is a day of celebration and joy, which is why we started out with the Ode to Joy, and Follow Me, because the people were following Jesus. So it's a day of, as I said, celebration and joy, remembering when Jesus came to Jerusalem for the very last time. He was greeted with joy and with palm branches, which is the traditional welcome of a ruler, palm branches. And Child of David, which they called him, was a title often given to the rulers of Israel in memory of David, who was the first first ruler anointed by God, and the most revered ruler of Israel. Now, many churches only celebrate Palm Sunday today. That's all they do today, is Palm Sunday. But today we're going to follow another tradition which we've done in the past, which is more recent. So we remember not only Palm Sunday, but the rest of Holy Week as well, because many people can't make it to the weekday services due to work or family or whatever. So we're going to make sure that all of us are able to not miss out on the power and the message of Jesus. So we see the joy of Palm Sunday, so that we don't see just the joy of Palm Sunday and then the joy of Easter, but we go by the cross in between. So we remember first Holy Thursday, or Maundy Thursday, which is a contraction of mandate, or mandatus, the Latin, which means command, because at that Last Supper, Jesus gave a command to his disciples, like, love one another as I have loved you. And he washed their feet. And that's often a part of Maundy Thursday services, is foot washing. We remember that meal every week in communion, of course. But the two most sacred days in the Christian calendar are yet to come. And the first of these is Good Friday. Now, Good Friday gets its name either from God's Friday, sort of a contraction, or because it is seen as good in spite of the terrible things that happened because of Jesus' eventual resurrection. So Good Friday is the day that Jesus was tried and condemned to death by the Roman Empire because his teachings were liable to incite the people to resist the imperial power. Now, he'd been starting to make converts among some of the powerful people, wives and family of some of the leaders, and so they were getting worried. The accounts that we have in the Gospels, in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are a bit muddled, and sometimes they contradict each other. But some things we do know for sure. One is that the Jewish Sanhedrin, or council, the Jewish council, did not have any legal power to condemn someone to death. They could not do that. They didn't even have a way to execute someone. So that was done by Pilate, the Roman governor. Now, incidents and comments that might throw blame on the Jews is mostly found in John, in the book of John. And it's indicative of the resentment that had grown up between the early Christians who were pulling away from Judaism and the Jewish religious leaders. It's very doubtful that the Jewish religious leaders had any leverage with Pilate. So it was really a Roman decision. It was a Roman execution. It was under Roman law, not Jewish. I am belaboring this point because, especially this time of year, we do still sometimes hear people saying that the Jewish religious leaders were responsible for Jesus' crucifixion. It was convenient for the writer of John to make them responsible rather than Romans, because he was interested in making Christianity respectable in the Roman Empire. So he wanted to make it as unlike Judaism as possible, right? He wanted to set them apart. So now you have some information to share if you hear some of those comments about blaming the Jewish leaders for Jesus' death. So for many Christians, this is the holiest day of the Christian year because they view it as the day Jesus atoned for the sins of the whole world by dying on the cross. His execution, to their mind, paid God back for all the sins that humans have committed, are committing, and will commit. His death, that one death, paid for it all. It's called substitutionary atonement theology. It's not what I believe, so I'll lay that out right there. In this way of thinking, God requires some kind of payment or restitution for all those sins, and Jesus was born, therefore, simply to die in order to redeem humanity, to allow sinful humans to avoid damnation if they only believed in him. He paid the price, as the hymns say. I think of it differently, which is probably no surprise to anyone, I hope. Jesus was condemned and executed by the Roman Empire because he threatened their status quo. Not in a political or military sense, which is what some people think that Judas wanted, which is why he betrayed Jesus, because he saw that Jesus was taking a different road. But Jesus was acting in a far more subversive way. He wanted to change the way people thought about God, about the universe, about each other. He taught, as I often say at communion, a message of love and reconciliation rather than domination and empire. And clearly, if you're the Roman Empire, you are in favor of both those things, domination and empire, right? So what he was teaching was undermining the Roman Empire. He was subversive, he was a rebel. And so Jesus died on that Good Friday. Now, we know the rest of the story, so even while we're coloring Easter eggs and buying lilies and finding new outfits and so on, we're thinking of his death as we prepare for Easter, but we are preparing for Easter because we know that his resurrection is coming on Easter Sunday, the second of those two holiest days. Now, it can be hard for us to put ourselves into the place of the disciples and friends of Jesus on Good Friday because they didn't know what was going to happen. We know it's not the end of the story. They didn't. So when we leave, we will remember Good Friday. We will leave in silence and grief like those followers of Jesus on the first Good Friday. And our communion and the end of the service will be a bit different today as we remember that last meal and hear the gospel story of Jesus' last day and death. May our worship bring us to a deeper understanding of Jesus' love for us, that he brought his message of love and hope in spite of knowing what the end would be. In all God's names.